Well, hello there. Hello to my brothers and sisters from across the land, and to all those who are not. Love, grace, and peace to you all. I hope you're having a blessed day, or at least I hope that you're having a productive day. I am having a productive day because I'm on this hill, the wind is down so I can record, so I don't have to scream into the microphone, and I'm surrounded by sheep. I'm surrounded by the sheep of Scotland. You see them? They're beautiful, you know. They're just so at peace, you know. They're so at peace, and we share that with the sheep. Well, actually, we have a greater peace than the sheep have because we know that God is at peace with us. I wonder if the sheep know that God is at peace with them. I'll have to ask. Hey, do you know that God is at peace with you? Do you? In your sheep minds, do you know that the Creator is at peace with you and He has created you the exact same way that He has designed you and He is happy with you? He is content with you. I wonder. Regardless if they do or if they don't, they will one day. Of course, I can't read their little sheep minds, but if I could, I would tell them, I would communicate to them in sheep that God is at peace with them. And that's what we do with humanity. That's what we've been called to do. Every single one of the believers from across the world, in Scotland, in America, and Canada, and Australia, and South Africa, and all across Europa, we're all here. And we're proclaiming the good news to a generation that's crooked and perverse, and to a generation that's lost in the darkness. We're appearing as luminaries in the darkness, beacons of light. We're pointing to the one who has loved us before we were even born, the one who knows us inside and out, the one who could never forsake us and never abandon us, the one who has accomplished salvation for all of humanity, and the one who wills all to be saved, and He will save everyone from death. The one who cannot and will not fail. His name is Yahweh, and He is our Papa. He is our Abba, our Father. Isn't that amazing? Isn't it amazing that God foreknew us before the disruption of the world, before you were even born, before you were in your mum's womb, or your mom's womb, if you're from the States? God had us in mind before the disruption of the very world. Before the eons of this world, God had us in mind, and He granted us the faith to believe in what the world considers to be impossible. How can God be reckoning righteous, His own righteousness, through faith to those who have been granted faith to believe in the death, entombment, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God for all of sin, the perfect sacrifice? The flawless man who never sinned, with the perfect faith and perfect obedience to God. He has reconciled us back to God, and eventually all will be reconciled back to God in the end, including the sheep. They're not at peace with God right now, of course. Which, like I said, I can't talk to the sheep because I don't speak sheep, but if I did, I would tell them. But here's a question to you guys and gals from around the world. How do we handle those who have not been called into the faith? How do we treat those who have no faith? How do we treat those whom God will not grant faith to in this world, in this administration of grace? Well, the word grace kind of sums it up. We are to deal graciously with all of humanity, but especially to the family of faith. I don't know if that's an exact quote from Scripture, but I guess I just made it up, but it sounds about right. So we are to deal graciously with all of humanity, but especially the family of faith. We are to be patient with them because they do not know the truth. We don't go around there and abuse them and slander them and mock them because they're being locked up into vanity and into the stubbornness of religion. Yes, because guess what? We too were also in the religions of this world. How much of a hypocrite would we be if we were to condemn those who don't have faith? That's kind of like boasting in a way. How dare we condemn those who do not know the truth yet? They're not a believer yet. There's no such thing as a non-believer. It's just pre-believers. They're about to be believers, but it won't be in this world. It won't be in this administration. It might be at the consummation. It could be in the Aeonian times. I've no idea. But our disposition should remain the same, regardless of who we're encountering. It doesn't matter if you're encountering a psychopath, your stepmom, your wife, Your children or your boss or your co-workers or someone that's trying to harass you and slander you, or your best friend. It doesn't matter who we're interacting with in this world if they're a non-believer. Our disposition is rooted and grounded in the Spirit of God, which is love. God is love. And the fruit of the Spirit of love is joy, is peace, is kindness, is meekness, is goodness, is faithfulness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. Paul says to be an imitator of God as beloved children of God. He doesn't say try to, he just says be. Be an imitator of God. And how does one accomplish that? Well, it's God who accomplishes that through us because we are his achievement. And that is fundamental. It's so important that we understand that it's God who works through us and inside of us. It's not ourselves. Because the moment that we rely upon ourselves to accomplish good works or to walk in the Spirit and things like this, in actuality, we're walking in the flesh because we're walking in our flesh. When God granted us his Spirit, that is him working in us, in the believers. So everything that's good that you do, you cannot say, aha, that was because I'm so benevolent. I'm so merciful. I'm such a good guy. Because as we all know, we are not good guys. God does not choose the good guys. God did not send his Son into the world to die for the sins of the just. Because if they were just, they would not sin. And since we sin, we are not just. Yet we have been declared just and reckoned as just through faith, the faith that God gave us. So how can we boast in anything apart from that? We can boast in nothing apart from Christ and him crucified. What can we boast in the process of salvation? Nothing. What can we boast in the process of conciliation? How God is conciliating us to himself through Christ. And he's conciliating the world to himself. Eventually, all will be at peace with God because God is at peace with them. And eventually, all will be reconciled. And nothing and no one can stop it. I don't care who you are, what you think you've done, or how bad you are, you will be reconciled back to God, the Creator, who created you to be who you are, to fulfill a role in his creation. We're all a part of his play. This is a circus, the divine circus, and you play a role. You could be a clown. You could be one of those girls who does what's that called? The trampoline or the trampoline? I can't. The trampoline. Yeah. You know that girl who walks on the thing? Yeah, that. You could be that, or you could be the host. You could be all these different characters and roles, yet all of it has been preordained by God in the absolute, of course. Yet we live in the relative, so we don't understand these things. Apart from the believers. The non-believers do not understand the absolute. They don't understand the perspective of God. And I'm not claiming to understand the mind of God, but I do know what God wants. And what does God want? He wants you. And he's going to get you. He wants to save all of humanity from death, and he will accomplish that. He's already accomplished the means of how he's going to do it. And he's granting faith to those who he foreknew before the disruption of the world. So how do we treat those who have not been foreknown, who have not been granted the faith to believe? Well, the exact same way how God treats them. God is at peace with them. And if God is at peace with them, and Paul tells us to be an imitator of God, as a beloved son of God, then we also should be at peace with them. That requires a lot of humility. It requires a lot of spirit, a lot of love, and a lot of truth and realization of who we are and what we've done and what we deserve based upon our acts. We deserve to just die and go into the soil. Yet God has raised us up and has granted us and has blessed us with all of these things. All is yours, Paul says. And what did we do to deserve that? Nothing. And that it kind of does humiliate you. We've been humiliated in this life for all the actions and sins and bad deeds that we've done. And we've been brought to the end of ourselves. We've come to the end of ourselves and we've realized that we are nothing apart from God and his sovereignty. We've been humiliated for our lives, and the realization of all of this, everything that God has accomplished through Christ, it humbles you. And that humility is the basis of this love and this peace that we can dispense to all those who are not in the truth yet. If we are not in accord with the Spirit, if we're not walking in accord with the Spirit, as Paul says, then God will correct us. And he might use a believer to do that, like Paul did to the Corinthians when they had to be adjudicated and adjusted. And all of these things is for our good, it's for our benefit, it's for our learning. It's all a learning experience. And you can't learn unless you make a mistake. And you can't make a mistake unless you were made as a sinner first. So all is of God, all is through God, and eventually all will return back into God, because God is the sovereign director of all things. Thank God for that. So how do we treat those who are in the world, those who are not in the truth? With love, because God is love.